right, Jimmy, let's pivot to the In the Gym segment with John and Marty. And I threw something at Marty this morning, which said, Marty, let's lead a conversation with John today around the 10 most important principles muscle in the gym. Now, we might not get to all 10 today. We perhaps might use the week to get through this, but let's talk about Marty.
So
Go
I'm
ahead.
just pick out the good ones.
Awesome. Yeah.
Is that cool?
100% Marty, because people tuning in are going, what we talked about, Jory, about intermittent fasting, but what are the principles of building muscle? So when I go to the gym, I want to build muscle. I don't want to build fat. So what are the principles along that? So I'm going to get off stage with Tina. I'm going to go see if I can get my camera back on here and throw you guys up here for whatever, 6-7 minutes, and we'll come back and continue. All right?
All righty.
Over to you, Marty. Johnny.
All right, Johnny.
Lead the way, my brother. Lead the way.
All right, the first one we got, Johnny, progressive overload. That being basically the cornerstone to muscle building. How do you feel about that one?
Well, there's no question that it works, but there's so many other elements that have to be in place to lean on that. This is something that you're talking about doing a little bit more every time you come back around the pipe. And in order to have that work, you've got to have your sleep in check. You got to have your stress in check. You got to have your diet in check. And very few people have all of this in harmony. And so a lot of times what happens, unfortunately, is they start off, it'll work for them up front. They'll run into a snag, it'll stop, and then they get all bent out of shape and they have a hard time moving forward with it. So it's a great principle, but there's a lot more to it than just the numbers in the gym to make it work.
Definitely. And just real quickly, I really believe that shocking your body is the best way to build muscle. Right, your body has to do new things. It has to be put under new stress. And so progressive overload that's a key way to do that. You're going to have to do that if muscle building is your goal.
And we're on that level. Let's just say that you're going through this thing and you're having success, and all of a sudden, boom, you get stops. Flip the script. Do your workout backwards, because literally all you're doing at that point is you're giving your body a different shock, as Marty's saying, which is true. You got to prompt your body to adapt. If it doesn't adapt, it's not getting better. So don't think that you're gonna have challenging times, but don't get to that place where when I say flat, meaning you're just having a hard time pushing and doing what you need to do. Go a different direction briefly, give the body a different shock, a different sensory, then go back to it. But in most cases, just so if you're using this principle, it's usually not in the gym where you're having trouble. It's somewhere in your life.
I like that. And that goes along with the next point. We're going to touch on some nutrition. Protein being key, or protein being king. That's going to be one of the keys to your muscle building process.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Johnny, and I'll give my commentary.
Here's the deal. We know now for a fact, it's proven through science, that excess protein will be burned for fuel. So if you really want to make sure you're building, you're going to need to make sure that you have an excess of protein. Now, you can easily have an excess of protein and basically lower the fats, lower the carbs, whatever you got to do to make sure you're not getting fat in the process. But if you don't have enough protein, think about protein is like the building blocks. So I think if you're trying to build a brick wall, you need to have adequate bricks if you're going to keep building that son of a bitch. If you run out of bricks, you're not building anything anymore. So if you don't bring in adequate protein, you're running out of bricks. So my advice is to always make sure you have adequate bricks on the job site, or you have adequate protein coming through your system at all times, because it's not just eating before and after the workout. You're recovering. Your body's working on recovering the next day, sometimes the day after that. And that's where it needs that adequate amount of protein.
And I'll say this too. A lot of people on their journey, they'll say, I eat a lot of protein. Start tracking it. Start tracking how much protein you're getting, because 9 times out of 10 you're under eating the protein. You're under eating.
Yeah.
And you can't just be like, this has protein in it. So that's not the same as actually tracking your protein and getting the numbers that you need. So go ahead, Johnny.
If you're using peanut butter to get your protein, well, guess what? Butter is a fat source primarily. You're not getting enough you're ODing on fat trying to get your protein. So we're talking about, when we talk about eating protein, what I'm talking about is flesh. When I think people often ask, what is protein? How do I identify it? Here, listen up closely. If it at one time could see you, you can eat it. That's protein.
All right, next one. We got one of your favorites, Johnny. I know you're going to go off on this one. Sleep and recovery being one of the keys to your muscle building process.
Oh, man. Sleep is the most anabolic factor we know as human beings. You could talk about PEDs. You can talk about eating right. You can talk about whatever you want. but sleep is the top of the food chain. How do we make better sleep? It's actually much more simple than you think. You just got to have some discipline. You got to have some nuts to actually follow through. Everybody has an alarm when they wake up. Try setting an alarm when it's time to go to bed if you're having trouble with that. And you literally have a set, because what happens, set bedtime, set wake up time, your body will catch on to that. And it's called your circadian rhythm. Once your circadian rhythm gets into place, you're going to have much more efficient sleep. And sometimes what happens, like my clients, they end up sleeping less, but they end up getting more because they're sleeping better. They're sleeping more efficient. The joke is you're sleeping faster, waking up before your alarm, feeling refreshed and ready to go.
Yeah.
So I cannot stress how important sleep is.
Absolutely. Body won't recover if you don't sleep. So the muscle tissue won't grow if you won't sleep, and fat won't burn if you don't sleep. Absolutely. All right. I guess we got one more. I'm sure Keith is going to pop in here in a second. But consistency being key. And you always said, you got to fucking show up.
That's what my lifestyle tip about was today, is that there's a fleet of people who, they're successful and they like to be successful. And they're not trying to bring other people with them. I don't like those people. I think if you're successful, it's your duty to show other people how to do it. Yep. And literally, if you just show up, meaning you do what you're supposed to do, even if you do it poorly on a day because you're not feeling well, but you show up, showing up is going to put you ahead of 80% of people. So if you're looking to separate yourself, it's pretty goddamn easy in today's times. Fortunately for people that want to get ahead, it's easier now than ever before because we got more lazy bastards on the planet than we've ever seen. I shouldn't say lazy. It's just addictive cell phone, addictive. Yeah, it's a combination. Yeah, they're lazy, but they're also addicted to these electronics. A lot of times they know they got to go to the gym, but they're so hooked on a video game, they burn right through the time they need or whatever, the scrolling, whatever it is. But the point is that if you show up, you're going to get ahead of 80% of people. And if you could put yourself in that top 20%, you'd probably be pretty happy with your results.
I want to add one thing that I took from my basketball coaches, and I apply that to fitness. They always say you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You never staying the same. Exactly. And as harsh as that sounds, especially with fitness, it's the truth, especially after 30 when atrophy kicks in. Your body is either getting better or getting worse. You're not staying the same. So when you think about that and you become more intentional about your goals and your meal prep and your workouts and your attitude towards it, that's going to change a lot and it's going to help you be consistent. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Marty, you're the puppy and you're talking about atrophy kicking in at 30 and you're talking to our 40-year-old friend Flynn, and you're talking to 2-year-old fathers over here. You're talking about atrophy kicking in. You're fucking Marty. Johnny, like actually he's talking about aging and getting old for his 31-year-old body.
I train a lot of people y'all age.
Here's the crazy thing about it is that people are worried about atrophy, this, that, atrophy, that. Well, if you're eating right and you're training with some regularity, you've got to stop. I want to say it's 10 days before you'll actually start to have atrophy. So you can make mistakes and you can still make progress. The mistake that you don't want to make is to not do this shit for a couple of years, because now exactly what Marty said is happening. And if it's, what is the old saying? If you don't use it, you lose it. It's never been more true as a male gets older. I'm a perfect example for me. I've been actually focused on my thoracic twist. Every morning, I swear to God. You know why? Because I find when I'm fucking driving, if I want to look behind me, I'm like, God damn it, I can't see what's behind me. Honey, is there something on her hip? I can't fucking see. So I'm like, this is pathetic. I'm 52. I need to get my shit loosened up. So I spend 3 minutes a morning, and now I can look behind me, no problem. I wasn't doing this movement enough in my life, and I lost that movement. Isn't that fucking crazy?
I have a question.
That's fucking
So
crazy.
talk to me. What's the shit that everyone talks about with like muscle memory? Don't worry. If you don't do it for a couple years and then you come back to it, muscle memory is there, and you'll see that it's like quicker in terms of getting back to where you want to be.
Anybody who knows what they're talking about with muscle memory does not include a couple of years with that term. We'll leave it at that.
Oh, is that the same thing that if you don't have sex for a couple of years and you just touch something, you just go,
oh God, he's going deep with that one, man.
The muscle memory, right, Johnny? If it's not used, all of a sudden that just happens. It's just like
the question: are you trying to develop the muscle memory so you don't end up a statistic at 5 minutes? So you actually can do job properly. Let's talk about what muscle memory we're trying to react.
You'll notice dip in our audience when you did.
Is your chick gonna go on her cell phone because you're performing so?
We talked about that last week. That half the nation likes to use their phones while they're having sex, is what John's referring to. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Lauren jumps in with a comment: muscle memory is totally a crock. yes, there's a lot of probably crock in all of that.
Yep.
I got to tell you guys, though, as we wrap up the segment with John and Marty, because they're going to rock and roll out of here. Marty, every time Johnny says thoracic twist, I think about our friend Rich Ingram. And I think about Rich going, how the fuck am I supposed to do that, Johnny, with my left side? Because I know Moses just hanging out and he's going, Johnny.
He finds a way. That's all I can say. He's
Rich
going to
finds
get
a way to
down
do
there
everything.
somehow.
We were on that show and Rich was fucking laughing because I know he's trying to figure out in his head going, Jesus Christ, man, thoracic twist. For the rest of my life, Marty, all I think about thoracic twist, I think of Anderson figuring out the bidet, figure out how he's going to fucking do this. So anyways, guys, before we get out of here, Marty, come on, man. Before we get out of here.
And everybody doesn't. They didn't see that episode, Keith.